Good morning.
Good morning.
The Prince George's County Planning Board is now in session. Before commencing with our development review items, we always have a moment of silence for those who have passed on in the intervening week. Of course, I'm going to, since January 23rd, our last meeting, and of course, we're going to start with the horrific passing of Kobe Bryant, Gianna Bryant, and the whole Adebelli family. Ara Zabayan, who was the pilot, Sarah Chester, and Peyton Chester. Peyton Chester also played on Team Mamba. Alyssa Altobelli was 13. It was just tragic. I could sit here and recite all of Kobe's accomplishments and all of his statistics, but you know them, you've been hearing them over and over again if you didn't know them from the onset. But we lost a superhero, and probably, as he said, rightfully so, his biggest accomplishment, despite all of those awards, was his family. So if we could remember them. We also want to remember Jim Lehrer, age 85, who was a longtime PBS News anchor. For 36 years, he gave public TV viewers an alternative to network even news programs with in-depth reporting and interviews. George Herbert Walker III, 88, former U.S. ambassador to Hungary. Vocalist Tony Smith. Many of you may not know who she was, but she was significant to me because she sang this and co-wrote the song Funkin' for Jamaica, New York, which is part of Queens, which was my hometown, so I knew them, and we want to remember her as well. Fortney H. Pete Stark Jr., 88, former Californian congressman who served 40 years in the House of Representatives. There were a number of people we've lost in tragedies throughout the world, and we want to remember them as well. If any of you suffered a loss of which I am unaware, please know that we extend our condolences to you as well, if we may have that moment of silence. Thank you. Once again, first of all, we're closing out the month of January, which was Get Organized, Financial Wellness, and Get a Life Month. Now, how's that been working for you? Okay, it's not working too well for me. Okay, it is also National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And as much as we fight this, it continues to be on the rise. If you see there are signs. If someone looks, you can check on a website, but if someone looks especially shy, there are services that can help people. We cannot allow, or if you see strange activities going on in your neighborhood, we cannot allow this to continue. I also wanted to say it is on January 30th, 1873, Jules Verne's historic publication of Around the World in 80 Days. 1948 was the unfortunate assassination of pacifist and spiritual leader Mahatma Gandhi. 1956, I'm going to look around out there. I'm not going to make any judgments, but Elvis recorded what? Okay, what color shoes? Blue suede shoes, there we go. 1956, during his never-ending, actually fatal quest for equal rights, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's home was bombed yet once again on this day, 1956. 1961, President JFK asked for Alliance of Progress and for the Peace Corps. 1975, Erno Rubik applied for a patent for his magic cube, which became known as the Rubik's Cube. The 1977 was January 30th was the 8th and final the airing of the final part of Roots, which was the most successful U.S. entertainment show ever, as successfully watched. Was the most watched show ever. January 30th is also Thank Your Mentor Day. So none of us got here on our own. We stand on somebody's shoulder, somebody helped us, so thank your mentor. And because some of us are foodies up here, it is National Croissant Day. I keep this sign up here because the census is coming. People will start getting forms as early as March 12th. And you can complete your census form now online, by phone, or in person. So there are options now instead of the one option we had in years past. It is imperative that everybody complete their census form, and it's imperative that everyone be ambassadors to tell others to complete their census form. There are those who are reluctant to do so, understandably, for fear of deportation or whatever, just a lack of trust in government. But there are penalties of fines and jail time pursuant to Title 13. So a significant jail time and significant fines. And it's imperative because for each person not counted, Prince George's County loses $18,250. And in 2010, that undercount resulted in a loss of $363 million, which could have benefited the county in terms of education, transportation improvements, might have even helped some of you not have to do some transportation improvements. So there really is something to be gained by everybody completing their census form. Plus, it gives us accurate representation in Congress. So, and for a host of other reasons. So we just want to make sure everyone does that. I would remind everyone that we're approaching Black History Month. We started early. We had the kickoff this past Sunday. It was beautiful. The exhibit is down at Harmony Hall. It features Black women from the ballot and beyond. And it's amazing, and it's going to stay there instead of 1 month for the month of February. It's going to continue right into March because we go into Women's History Month. Now, I'm sure you all don't have a problem with that, right? Okay. And then finally, so I invite you to go see the exhibit. It's really amazing. And then finally, we close out with, 49ers, show of hands. No four. Okay, all three of you. Okay, Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, all right, there we go, the clear majority. Okay, well, good luck to you and your respective teams. I want to start with, is there anyone here to oppose staff's recommendations on item 4D, or any board member who wishes to discuss?
Move approval, Madam Chair, of item 4D. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, our first item on the agenda is Parkside Comprehensive Design Plan 0501-02. Because it is a comprehensive design plan, there is a statement that I must read first. And so this hearing is being held under the general enabling authority of the Land Use Article, Annotated Code of Maryland, and conducted in accordance with specific requirements and procedures set forth in sections 27, 516 through 532 of the Prince George's County Code and the Maryland Administrative Procedures Act. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the applicant's submission of a comprehensive design plan proposal and to consider that plan in relation to the criteria set forth in section 27-521 of the Prince George's County Code. All persons who wish to participate in the hearing must register with Mr. Cosby at this time. There he is, Mr. Cosby. Okay. All persons appearing before the board to present testimony, not legal advocacy, but testimony in this matter must be sworn in. So if you intend to speak and present testimony, please stand. Okay. In the presence of Almighty God, do you solemnly promise and declare that the testimony you are about to give before this board is the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief? And I have to hear it. Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. There's no one else. You have no one else, Mr. Antonetti? Okay. The hearing is being recorded. Therefore, all exhibits must be properly marked when they are introduced and identified when referred to or discussed. All persons testifying should speak directly into the microphone. Okay. Because we are, it is a comprehensive design plan, we are joined by our People's Zoning Council, Stan Derwin-Brown, and we're pleased to have him with us today.
Good morning. Always a pleasure.
Okay. So thank you. And without further ado, Mr. Zhang, you are on.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
Good
and
morning.
members of the Planning Board,
Good morning.
and also People's Zoning Council. For the record, this is Henry Zhang with Urban Design Section. This CDP revision today is very limited to only revise one condition, which is specifically condition 25 on staff report, page 3. Specifically, the applicant tried to modify the trigger for the condition 25 to postpone the issuance of the building permit from the 2,000 previously approved one to 2,500 building permits. The site is in planning area 78, Council District 6. This is the location of the project, which previously known as Miss Home Farm. This is once again zoning map. Consists of RM zone and the LAC zone here. LAC is here. is also within the military installation overlay zone here. This is the site which showed some of the portion has been completed. This is site map showed a lot of environmental features on the site. This is the Maspin roadway, show this is Suitland Parkway. This is Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the original approved comprehensive design plan exhibit for a total of 3,648 DUs and 170,000 square feet of commercial. I just want to run through this exhibit very quickly. If you turn to page 5 of the staff report, the property ownership has changed since the initial approval. The current applicant, which own 646 acres of the RM zone, and which include 2,112 residential units. As of writing of this report, 848 permit has been issued, and the applicant tried to postpone the trigger for condition 25 in order to get additional building permit, which will establish a critical mass for this commercial uses. If you look at the staff report, page 6 and 8, all the findings for approval of comprehensive design plan have been fully met. And then this revision is limited only to one condition, which does not change any findings previously approved in CDP 0501. The urban design section recommends approval of this 02 revision to CDP 0501, and subject to only one revised condition 25 on page 9 of the staff report. This concludes the staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of Mr. Zhang at this time? Okay, Mr. Antonetti.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the
Morning.
Planning Board. For the record, Robert Antonetti with the law firm of Shipley & Horn. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of the applicant, SHF Project Owner, LLC. With me today, we have Mr. Bassem Katan, the project owner's representative, and we also have Ms. Rachel Leitzinger, the engineer from Dewberry, on the project. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Mr. Zhang for his work on this case. I'm working several cases with him right now, and his approach and his interactive nature on these matters is exemplary, and I just want to publicly acknowledge that and look forward to working with him further. As Mr. Zhang stated, we're here for amendment of one condition of the CDP for Parkside. The CDP has had multiple applications over the years. It was originally approved, I believe, circa 2006. It was amended in 2012. There was an 01 revision. This is the 02 revision. In 2016, there was a reconsideration, which we were the applicant in that case, where we modified the Central Park conditions regarding the timing and funding, which was a very detailed process, and worked hand in hand with the Parks Department to come up with a revised condition since we were providing that amenity. As we stand here today, we're pleased to state that Parkside is the #1 fastest selling project in Prince George's County. The 15,000 square foot community building, which you've approved and you've seen, is hopefully will be open on President's Day this year. It's furnished right now. It's looking beautiful, and we're very excited about that moving forward. As Mr. Zhang stated, what we're here for is to amend Condition 25, which states that that the commercial aspect of overall Parkside needs to have 70,000 square feet completed prior to the issuance of the 2,000th permit. As Mr. Zhang stated, we own 646 acres of the overall CDP area. We have the legal right from the initial developer, which is DASC LLC, who are the retained owners of the remaining portion beyond of the total project, which is about 101 acres they own. They own the LAC portion. The LAC, the Local Activity Center, is the commercial component of Parkside. It's the only area that's allowed commercial uses. We don't control that. Currently, we certainly support anything they'd want to do, but the 1,200 and some units that they're allowed to build, plus the 300 units on the LAC and the 170,000 square feet of commercial square footage that they're allowed to build. We'd love to see that come online, but right now they're not in that position to move forward. But to not impede our progress in terms of continuing to develop this vibrant residential community, we need the opportunity, as we are about 900 units into this project of our 2112 that we're allowed to build in our sections. And for the record, we control section 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's still a remaining section 7, and there's the LAC portion, which I mentioned, which is the commercial component. You may ask, why are we the only applicant here? Well, the condition is particular to us because it allows us to move through the units that we control on our property, which is the 2112. We picked 2,500 units as a suggestion for an amendment to the condition in our petition to allow for the DASC or the LAC property some additional units for them to build some critical mass and some velocity and population to support the commercial development, which right now they control and isn't moving forward. If for some reason that extension, again, was meant as an acknowledgement to them to allow them some additional space to do something, if we want to limit the condition to 2112, which is our main concern is to be able to develop our portion residentially, which was shown and reflected as such in the CDP and through the subsequent reconsideration and the 01 amendment, that's fine. But we believe 2,500 is fair. It's a rising tide that would lift all ships. And again, allow them some additional population to us and them, being DASC LLC, some additional population to support a future commercial component. So with that being said, we do support staff's recommendation. We feel that it meets all the requirements for a CDP amendment as outlined in the staff report and in our statement of justification. We thank you for your consideration of this one request, and we are available to answer any questions or comments that you may have.
Okay, so first, let's see if there are any questions of Mr. Antonetti from the board or from Mr. Brown. And then also, you have some folks signed up in opposition, and when they finish, you'll be able to come back and speak. Mr. Brown?
Yes, I have 2 or 3 quick questions. Mr. Antonetti, you just indicated you represent SHF Project Owner LLC.
Correct.
You do not represent DAS LLC.
That is correct.
Now, in looking at page 5 that Mr. Zhang referred us to, it indicates that DAS essentially still owns 111 acres within the CDP, correct? And your client owns 646 acres, correct?
Correct.
And the condition, as you're requesting it to be revised, applies to all of the acres, the 757 acres, correct?
As currently worded, correct.
As currently worded, right? Now, you indicated DASC is not an applicant.
Correct.
Did you request them to be an applicant?
No.
I went online and looked at the SDAT reports. DASC was forfeited in 2015. It is not a legal entity in Maryland. The problem I see in this case is, as you know, an ethics affidavit is required to be filed on CDPs. If this planning board approves a resolution for the entire 757 acres, which includes property owned by a forfeited LLC, you cannot file the required affidavit within 30 days so that the council can accept this case. And so I think it's very problematic here that we have a case without an applicant that affects an applicant's property, which they have not consented to. And in the future, one of the problems could be, I don't know whether this is going to happen, but DAS can come in and say, hey, I did not consent to the revision to the 2,500. I wanted it to be 3,000. Or they could do the reverse and say, I wanted to go forward now and stick to the 2,000 so we could have the commercial part come in and support our residential. How are you going to deal with that
So
quantity?
this came up with the reconsideration in 2016, where a similar situation where this CDP conditions dealing with the Central Park were revised by the moving party, which was our client alone. DAS did not participate. They did not file an affidavit. And the conclusion, after looking at that, was since the Central Park and the provisions that those conditions address were within the area and the responsibility of our client, that was acceptable, that that property owner and that applicant be the applying party. So that went through the council and was approved as us being the moving party. Here, similarly, I think if you feel it would be appropriate, that, again, we control sections 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If we limit it through the findings or the condition language itself, that the permits being authorized are within those sections. And again, our concern is the 2112 number, which we have the legal right to, which we bought from DASK. That is the limits of this condition. I think then you would be in the same position consistent with what was done in the reconsideration back in 2016 for amendment of the Central Park conditions in the same CDP. So I was not aware that they were forfeited. I heard some rumblings about their position, and I'm not exactly sure where they are. And I don't know if I could even get a affidavit from them certainly unless they reconstitute themselves legally with SDAT and revive their entity, and whether they'd even be available to submit an ethics affidavit otherwise. So given the way it was handled in the past, I would think it's a valid point. I think it could be handled by either a finding or specific language in the condition stating that the permits being requested would be applicable to the sections that I just noted, which are owned by our client, SHF project owner.
Well, I think the example you gave in the past is a little bit different from this situation. Mr. Zhang, do you think it's doable that we could fashion the condition to apply only to the land, the 646 acres owned by this applicant?
Well, there is an issue here because they are asking for 2,500 DUs. And then under their control, they only have 2,112 DUs. So
Right.
if we want to
We would.
modify it, we had to modify it to that number.
That would be acceptable.
Yeah, and then I think it's still applicable here.
Right,
And then
because
the other option will be, the planning board can postpone the resolution, and then they can reach out to DAS LLC to get the ethic, statement. And then that means that we fulfill the 35 days, requirement. And then that's basically leave their burden on them to
I-
try to get the statement.
But if we just reduce the number of permits, then that take care of it, just reduce to 2,112.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, why don't we just alter the recommendation
The
to say
number.
prior to issuance of the 2112 building permits in the RM or LAC zone land in sections 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, comma, and then the rest of it stays the same.
And because that was agreeable to the applicant, and that we still have to hear from other people, but that part was agreeable to the applicant, and moreover, I'm a little bit hesitant about we can talk with legal counsel, I'm sure they're on top of this, but I'm a little bit hesitant to go forward with the case in its entirety as is, and then postpone the resolution, because the resolution is a mere embodiment of the decision, and this has to be addressed for purposes of the decision, I think. So, you're saying that, you said that 2,112 is acceptable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see did you have other questions,
Oh.
Mr. Brown?
raise the issue so that you could deal with it.
Okay,
And if I may, we probably should make it 2113 because we
Yeah,
have
yes.
2112. So so there one permit then theoretically wouldn't be
Okay.
allocated to us.
21
What is that number again?
prior to,
2113.
okay.
And then they certainly, the retained owner, if they were in the right legal position to do so, could request their own amendment or reconsideration further based on the circumstances that might be presented once they decide to move forward on their portions.
So we're talking about not much more than the condition already says, essentially.
Yeah.
2,000, okay. So, did you have any other questions?
Well, I'm not trying to create a problem for you, but I still think we have the issue of this CDP encompasses both properties. CDP is not divisible. We may be limiting the revision to your client's property, but the CDP affects both properties.
I think it's meaningful that the revision, the impact of the revision is limited to the land that we own and control,
But it therefore,
which
Okay.
is similar to the reconsideration.
We're getting ready to pass this. I need our legal counsel I don't know if you were prepared for this or not, but we need you all to go look at this. You can, Mr. Brown, you can step aside too, with this, Mr. Antonetti. What I can do for the moment, well, actually, we have two citizens here to speak. Did you want to speak now and then before I pass the case? Okay, so hold off on the passing. Ms. Newman, followed by Mr. Sharon.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Shay
morning.
Newman, 4304 Silverwood Court, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, 20772. My concern with the CDP is we're constantly making exceptions for these developers when they present these projects, and then we have all these conditions, and then we decide to start breaking off pieces, making different findings because they can't do X or Y. I understand that the current applicant bought it from someone else, but when he bought it, he bought all the conditions that came with it. And when he did the reconsideration for Central Park in 2016, why didn't he reconsider this particular item then? This seems like this particular condition change is going to help him finish what he needs to do, and then he can leave, the current applicant. And the homeowners are left holding the bag of, we wish we thought we had commercial, but now maybe somebody will come up and step up for the other piece of the property or not. But if that condition's in there and nobody continues to build after that, then they don't necessarily have to build the rest of the commercial. And I'm just really, really concerned. I've been in this development for 5 years, and yet this particular applicant hasn't delivered any of its big ticket amenity items. Like they said, that the clubhouse is about to open, but that was another thing. They came years ago and got those permits pushed. So it's just constantly always pushing the permits so that they could get more houses built. And then the community is left living with just houses and no amenities. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of Ms. Newman? Okay, Mr. Sharon. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the board.
Good morning.
My name is Warren Sharon. I live at
Sharon, I'm
9004.
sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
I've been called both.
Okay.
I've even been called Sharon Warren. So,
Okay.
so I live at 9004 Crystal Oaks Lane in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I'm in the Parkside development as well. And I'd like to echo the comments that Ms. Newman made. The residents have been waiting on amenities for a very long time. I've lived there for about 3 years now, and all of us bought into the property with the promise of all of these amenities, including Central Park, and the dates keep getting pushed further and further away. And am I permitted to ask a question?
Of the
Of-
applicant? Well,
of
tell us what you want to know.
So
when we
what I'd
call it
like
back
to know
up.
is, what is the purpose of a condition such as condition 25? Like, to put a limit on the number of permits that can be pulled until a trigger. What is the purpose of that
Okay.
condition? I'm just a citizen.
Okay, so I'm
I'd
going to
like
let you
know.
get all of your testimony out, and
Okay.
including the question,
So
and
the
then,
reason I want to know what the purpose of it is because if this 2113 is granted of the applicant, then the residents, he is essentially can build out his entire planned property, and the residents are left, as Ms. Newman said, holding the bag, but also dependent on and waiting on a forfeited company to give us our amenities that were planned and that were promised us when we purchased by our builder and the developer.
okay. Okay, so that was your issue. You're echoing the sentiments of Ms. Newman. You're concerned about the amenities and the commercial park and the Central Park, things like that, the delay, and you want to know what
And
the
I want
purpose
to
is
know,
of
like,
this.
yeah, what is the purpose of the condition and how it applies to you guys who are tasked with, both trying to support the development in the area, but also support the residents because you represent us.
Yeah,
So that was my.
thank you. Thank you very much. Did we have any questions of Mr. Sharon? Okay, did you, Mr. Brown?
No.
Okay, all right. Mr. Zhang, would you care
Yes,
to
I
respond?
can answer that question because I was the original reviewer of this project. I think in the past, the planning board tried to attach this kind of condition to make sure, in this case, commercial to be happening at a certain stage of the development. But later on, I think with the market change, economic situation change, we don't believe in a way those commercial is the essential part of the rec facility or other amenities. Well, it can be one of the components of the amenity for resident to use, but I think we focus more on the recreational facility nowadays. And then that's why we try to depart a little bit from attaching something, mandate the developer to develop certain, components like a commercial, because commercial, especially in the suburban setting, the people has no loyalty to any commercial because we have so many options. And then if you look at this case, at the time of Smith Home Farm was developed, there's no town center proposed, but now there's a town center right over here, right to the north of this project.
It's not showing.
It's not showing on our
Yeah,
sheet.
I can't even move my mouse.
But can you switch,
Okay, here we go.
no, wait a minute. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yes, laser. Okay, but now there's a huge town center here. They
Okay.
have, millions, or at least, 4 or 5 millions of commercial.
So that's the town
Yeah.
center, okay.
So I think the urgency to build a small commercial without nobody occupying use it is not the top priority for this project now.
May I speak back to that? Sorry.
Okay,
Um,
okay, but we're not gonna have back and forth. You can,
No,
can address,
that's
okay.
fine. I just
okay.
want to say that, and I thank you for the response, Mr. Zhang, and thank you for taking my call the other week. And while I appreciate that this particular piece of commercial development is not that key, given that there are other developments around, they're not tied together, they're not linked together. And the builder and the developer are all still promising people who are buying into the community these things. So if they're really not that important, then why not be honest with the community about what the expectations can be?
Okay, well, that's a point well taken, so we'll have the applicant respond. Thank you, Mr. Sharon. Okay. Mr. Antonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just a point of clarity. Again, we don't own Section 7. We don't own the LAC portion, which I'm told is around 111 to 113 acres. On that, there's density rights in the RM zone, 1,236 units that can be built in the RM portion that we don't own, and 300 residential units can be built in the LAC portion that we don't own per the CDP. So there is still land that we don't control or own that could still develop on its own, independent of what we do. There was a statement from the testimony before me that if we're allowed to change this condition, then Parkside finishes up, and then we go on. Yes, we're trying to move to finality on our portion. We're basically asking for an extension of another 112 permits so we can develop the portion that we're allowed to do. Mr. Zhang's comment is correct. I also looked at the resolutions to figure out why that number for this commercial. I really didn't find a finding specific to it, but my assumptions were that they thought things being under one ownership, and at the time the market was different, things were moving a lot greater velocity, that these things could rise together. Well, the market's changed. We've gone through a significant recession. Things are recalibrating in the Westphalia area. What hasn't changed is our commitment to the portions of the land that we control under the CDP. And, we're developing and delivering the amenities that were promised and on the timeframes that we're allowed to deliver them. I heard that there's no amenities. That's not true. We have a 15,000 square foot community building, which is going to open, we believe, on President's Day. I'm sorry it took as long as it took. We certainly would want it open, as soon as possible.
2020.
Yes, in 2020.
That's what I'm.
So for the record.
Thank you.
So we're excited about that opportunity, and we welcome its use by our residents. I'm not sure if I answered the questions, but I just want to give, again, the insight that what we control, we want to finish. What we don't control still has development rights. And to Mr. Zhang's point, this was approved at a time when I think the full sense of what the town center to the south would be, which is supposed to have a significant commercial and office component. It will be connected. We're building infrastructure as we are in all our sections we control. By the time we're done, it'll probably be $100 million worth of infrastructure in those sections, including master plan road connections to the town center to the south. So it will work as a network. The town center will have connectivity to whatever they end up developing in the south.
Okay,
So-
well, let me stop you for a second because I still want to pass this case to address the legal issue. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you and the legal counsel and everybody a chance to talk. I wanted to get the testimony of the citizens in the event that they cannot remain behind. If you can remain behind, that's fine. If you can't, you can't. Well, at least we have your testimony. But we just still have a legal issue to address. And I'm going to pass this case, and I would also note that you have 1 week before the expiration of your deadline. I think your action limit is February 11th.
Oh, okay.
So,
The 70 days.
So we're going to pass it for today to continue today, hopefully, but in the event you don't have the answers, it might be a week.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so let's try it. So, Mr. Brown and our counsel, okay. So we're going to go forward with our item 6, Mr. Qualic. And possibly 7, depending on where they're. After 7, we will take, we have a legislative matter to address, and then we'll get to item 8. Good morning. Is your mic on? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Ted Kowalik with Countywide Planning, seeking your approval to transmit staff's recommendations for mandatory referral 1931F, the Bowie State University Living Learning Resident Hall and Entrepreneurship Center. The project is located in the northwest area of the county on the Bowie State University campus. Here's an aerial view of the site. The university is proposing to construct the 169,000 square foot Bowie State University Living Learning Resident Hall and Entrepreneurship on approximately 21 acres located at 13300 Jarrah Park Road. The site is wooded, and here's the natural features, and it has steep terrain right here down to a stream. And the portion of this site that will be developed is this north section right here that I'm outlining. The property is zoned OS. Here's a proposed site plan and shows the limit of disturbance and the 3 interconnected buildings. Here are some architectural renderings of what the proposed project will look like. And finally, staff recommendations include parking, loading, screening, and lighting recommendations, as well as the creation of pedestrian and bicycle connections to the main campus. The application has been reviewed for conformance to the Planning Board's adopted uniform standards for review of mandatory referrals. Staff recommends that the Planning Board transmit staff comments to the applicant And this concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Qualick. Are there any questions? It's a beautiful plan. There's no one here on the sign-up sheet to speak on this matter. Was there anyone here to speak? Did you wish to speak? Okay. Okay. Can you just come down and say who you're representing? Thank you. Just identify yourself.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Michael Harris. I'm the Capital Projects Manager for Bowie State University.
Okay. And you're in agreement?
And I'm in agreement, and I spoke with Mr. Kowalak yesterday, and in fact, a lot of the comments made have since been incorporated into
Okay.
our plan, so
Wonderful.
That's
we're
great.
fine.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, I didn't know if you, okay, with Bowie State or Medco. Okay. So if there are no questions, is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Did you have anything to add? Okay. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendations of staff and authorize the transmission of the report to the Maryland Economic Development Corporation. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was one of the topics that came up last night about attorneys talking with each other prior to the plan. I mean, we had this whole big meeting last night. And I'm like, then we talked about Stan, because Stan was at the meeting. Their firm was represented, and we were there. Ravi was there, David was there, Peter was there. You know, and I'm like, what? I'm thinking, all of them. And I'm like, why didn't they have that discussion? Right. Okay, we're on.
Morning, Madam Chairman and members of the Planning Board.
Good morning.
For the record, I'm Adam Bossi with the Urban Design Section. Item number 7 before you is a detailed site plan, DSP 19025 for Northgate. This DSP proposes the development of an 8-story mixed-use building with 296 multifamily dwelling units, 1,084 square feet of ground floor retail, and an interior 2-level parking garage. Before we start the presentation, just as a matter of housekeeping, there were 2 additional items that were included in backup. One that was handed out this morning is the City of College Park City Council decision and recommendations on the project. And the second item is a memorandum dated January 29th, 2020, which addresses both the City Council's letter as well as some additional information regarding a departure from parking standards that was required.
Okay, so let me make sure. So the one from City of College Park was received timely, so we don't, right?
Nope, the other way around. The memorandum was received in a timely manner, but the letter from College Park was provided this morning.
Provided to you this
Nope,
morning?
I'm sorry, provided to the board this morning.
I know,
We
but
received it
you received it when?
January 15th.
That's what I'm saying. So that was
It's in the
entered,
record.
it's in the record already.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, because this one is in response, right?
Correct.
So that one we don't need to add to the record. Your response was actually, I got your response, I think yesterday, so
That's correct.
they're both in the record, okay, all right.
Yes,
It was
ma'am.
before noon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry
So we
for
don't
my
need to-
confusion.
We don't need to add that, okay, okay.
So the committee may remember that on January 16th, preliminary plan of subdivision 4-19019 for this Northgate project was reviewed. So a number of these slides at the early part of the presentation are a bit repetitive from that. The site is located in the city of College Park in the northern portion of the county in Planning Area 66, Council District 3. Looking more closely, the site is located on the west side of US 1, Baltimore Avenue, at its intersection with Quebec Street. As shown in the aerial image, the subject site is developed with 2 existing restaurant buildings, a Burger King on the northern portion of the site and an abandoned restaurant on the southern portion of the site. The 2 parcels illustrated were approved for consolidation into a single parcel by the aforementioned preliminary plan. The zoning map shows the site is zoned mixed-use infill, shown in purple. As are other properties abutting it to the north, south, and across the street. Reserved open space is located to the west of the property and is where Paint Branch Dream Valley Park is located. The overlay map shows that the property is within the Development District Overlay Zone as defined by the 2010 approved U.S. Central 1 Corridor Sector Plan and Sectional Map Amendment, and is shown in the hatched pattern. The overlay zone includes a series of standards to promote an increase in density and mixed-use development along this corridor. The applicant has requested a number of amendments to the Development District Overlay Standards, which staff supports and are outlined on page 8 of the staff report. The shaded area in green also shows that the site is within Aviation Policy Area 6 associated with the College Park Airport. This overlay limits the height of new structures to 50 feet or less unless the applicant demonstrates compliance with FAA Regulation Part 77 and requires notification of future residents to the site's proximity to the airport. Recommended conditions have been incorporated to ensure the project conforms to these standards. There's one master plan right-of-way associated with the site, that is US 1, which the site fronts on its each side. In this area, the road is a major collector, and Maryland State Highway is the operating agency responsible for the roadway. There's two master plan trails located on the east and west side of the site, respectively. The master plan trail, illustrated on the west side, is known as the Paint Branch Connector Trail. There's also a master plan bikeway shown along the west side of US 1, along the east side of US 1. Well, I was right the first time, the west side, I apologize. The grade of the site slopes down from east to west, generally from a high point along US 1 to low points along the western property boundary. There's a relatively steep slope along that western boundary. Looking a little bit more closely at the site, again, we see the abandoned restaurant located on the southern portion of the property and the Burger King that exists on the northern portion of the site. Shown on the site plan, the DSP ultimately proposes to raise both those existing buildings and site features and construct a single 8-story building that will occupy most of the site space and front on US 1. The orange dashed line shown in the middle of the image that bisects the site represents a break between two character areas defined by the sector plan that impact the site. The southern half of the site is within the walkable node University character area, and the northern half is within the corridor infill area. The corridor infill area generally promotes a scale of development that serves as a transition between urban development and less dense suburban development. The walkable node character area promotes dense mixed-use pedestrian-oriented development. This project provides for a unified design that spans both these character areas and is more in line overall with the walkable node University character area. Is shown by this red circle at the southeast corner of the property. In this area, a landmark feature is required by the Development District Overlay Standards. The applicant has provided distinct architecture in the corner of this building, including a raised lantern on top of it. A pocket park, art sculpture, and trailhead are located at the ground level in this area as well, which will be shown in upcoming slides. On the southern and western sides of the property, which are here, the southern side, and along the western side, is the proposed Paint Branch Connector Trail. So the applicant is proffering to complete a portion of that master plan trail that was shown in an earlier slide. This new trail will be an 8-foot concrete sidewalk on the southern property line, and ultimately will help provide a connection from US 1 into the Paint Branch Dream Valley Park and then down to Berwyn House Road, connecting to the University of Maryland campus beyond. It's staff's understanding that both the Parks Department and City are supportive of this work, and this work, as well as some floodplain compensatory storage work, is proposed off the subject site on Parks land and will be subject to a future mandatory referral that is currently under review. Landscape plan shows that trees and shrubs are proposed as part of the US 1 streetscape on the east side of the site. Additional landscaping is proposed on the north and west sides of the property. And 3 internal courtyards are also proposed with vegetation, various ground cover plantings, residential recreation amenities, including a plunge pool, outdoor cooking areas, bocce court, and lounge areas. Looking more closely at that southeast corner of the site, where the DDO requires a special attention be paid to this area. And as such, it has been designed to include a new trailhead, shown in the illustrative image here, and in this site plan here. A pocket park also located within that trailhead area, and it will also include a piece of public art, seating areas, and other site amenities. This is also the same area that's designated for the landmark architectural feature. The streetscape design for the site follows Maryland SHA's approved design. SHA is currently in the process of implementing an improvement plan for this section of US 1. SHA's section serves as the guiding design line for the streetscape improvements for the site. The Development District Overlay provides a streetscape section as well, which differs slightly from SHA's design, primarily pertaining to the bike lane. The Development District Overlay requires or shows a separated cycle track, whereas SHA provides for an on-road striped bicycle lane. Again, this DSP proposes to develop the streetscape in accordance with SHA's approved plans, and staff does support that. Type 2 tree conservation plan filed with the DSP does illustrate 5 total specimen trees highlighted with the orange dots as being proposed for removal. The 3 located on site were previously approved for removal by the preliminary plan of subdivision. The remaining 2 will be reviewed with the mandatory referral for off-site work. Looking interior to the building a little bit, the retail component of this mixed-use development is illustrated in purple and consists of 1,084 square feet of ground floor retail at that southeast corner of the building. It will be accessible from the US 1 sidewalk, the residential lobby, as well as from, excuse me, as well as being in close proximity to the pocket park and trailhead location. The city did recommend a small increase in retail space to 1,200 square feet total, and staff and applicant agree with this, and a condition has been recommended for such. As previously mentioned, parking is provided internal to the building, both the ground floor and second level, with 2 access points proposed to US 1, the first being along the building's northern edge, and second along the southern edge. And this image just depicts the lower level only. It should be noted that the applicant did request a departure from his design standards to allow for a smaller standard size parking space of 9 feet by 18 feet, as opposed to the 9.5 by 19 foot spaces, which are the zoning ordinance standards, and staff does support this request for departure. The DSP also provides a comprehensive signage program with several examples of building signage shown here. The DDO does provide standards for signage, which are limited to commercial signage, and where the applicant does not conform to these standards, they requested amendment, and staff does support those. Looking at the building itself, there's a series of slides that will follow that show the architectural elevations from different angles. This slide illustrates the eastern facade, which will face US 1. Top image shows the landmark feature corner here with a prominent contemporary lantern on top. Along the facade of the building, a brick veneer is shown along the lower levels, where a series of various colors of gray, cementitious, and wood tone panelings are provided along the upper levels of the facade. And this is just an illustrative image of that landmark feature corner of the property, showing the contemporary lantern on the top of the building, public pocket park area with the art sculpture down below. Here on the western side of the property, just another look at the image. One feature of note is there will be a rooftop recreation feature that will overlook part of the promenade on the southwest corner of the property, in the northern elevation of the property. And this would be a rendering if you were coming south from north along Route 1. This is what the facade of the building would look like. It should be noted that the applicant has done a nice job incorporating a distinct M feature into their design, which shows a little bit more prominently here on the northern facade of the building, as it will be illuminated in the evenings. With that, the urban design section concludes our presentation and recommends that the planning board adopt the findings of the staff report and approve DSP 19025 for Northgate with conditions as recommended in the staff report and supplemental memo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bassi. Are there any questions?
You have just a
Okay.
couple of
Commissioner
questions. Mostly on the bike stuff. I like the design of the building and the other features, so I don't have any real issues with those. If you were to go back a couple of slides where we had sort of the wayfinding or like signage for the path that's going to connect, I think maybe one or two more slides before that. There was a corner of the building and the sort of M freestanding, yeah, that one right there. So in that bottom left visual aid, and I realize the visual aids aren't necessarily what's going to actually happen, but is there a way we can put on, not just on a sign, but on the asphalt itself, an indication that that's going to be a bike path so people realize, so pedestrian traffic going through there doesn't collide with bikes, and bikers can realize that they can go up that way as well? And that might be for the applicant, which is fine, but then also on the streetscape, when we're talking about the sector plan versus the SHA recommendations, I'm not comfortable with the SHA recommendations entirely because I actually bike there. And I don't bike on the street because I'm afraid of getting hit. So I'm not comfortable entirely with us going with the SHA plan, and I'm extremely familiar with that area. Putting it on the street isn't enough. We need to have some sort of a reflection, a reflector in the actual lanes to connect, to divide the lanes, or raised paved paths in there. I'm fine with it not being a separate cyclopath, that's fine with me, but it's extremely dangerous on the streets. People have died in College Park, that's why they've gone through, the road died in that area as they've been trying to cross over there with pedestrian traffic. I've almost gotten hit several times walking around in that area. And I don't bike on the streets because I don't want to get hit on the main Route 1 area. And having some way to distinguish visually as well as driving with cars would be helpful. It's something we don't do very well in this county. If you go to other cities or other countries, they have slightly raised paths for bikes to protect them, and to tell cars basically don't drive in there. So if the issue is we don't want to have the lane because cars may go across it as they're turning into the university later on, which it's really farther on over here. Having a raised path or a raised section of the street is perfectly fine, and it would work well because the cars would know as they're kind of going into parking lots that that's a dedicated area for the bikes that we have it paved and slightly raised. I realize that the barriers may be somewhat problematic because of cars going across that area, but having it slightly raised is fine. And having sort of markers in the street to visually also reflect off of there and show, or a different coloration of the street, will visually set aside that bike path and make sure we don't have cars going over and running people over in that area. Because I think that biking will become much more useful in that area as we get more students in there and as we sort of make these amenities and these forms of alternate modes of transportation more prominent. But we need to be really careful in that transition phase that we don't have additional fatalities, because that should never happen as we get to that other forms of transit. And that's my other comment or suggestion for this. And I hope you can take it back and then the applicant can address that as well.
Are there other questions? Mr. Haller? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Thomas Haller, I'm an attorney with offices in Largo, and I'm here today on behalf of the owner and applicant of this project, the Northgate Student Housing Project. Let me first introduce our team that we have with us today. I have Mr. Russ Broderick and Mr. Christian Syria with Gilbane Development Company. We have Mr. Andrew Persons with Design Collective, Andrew Lohr from Bowler Engineering, all of whom have been intimately involved in the design of this project. I would also be remiss if I did not thank your staff, not only Adam and Joe Kosak, but also senior staff, Mr. Hunt, in helping us keep the timing on track. We were before you 2 weeks ago and provided a lot of the basic property details. I won't go over that again, but this is the second of ultimately 3 matters that will be in front of you
2 weeks ago was the preliminary plan of subdivision. This is the detailed site plan, and then we will also be bringing a mandatory referral application to you as well. As I mentioned, 2 weeks ago, this property has a lot of challenges that we had to address, but I think what we've been able to accomplish is to bring a first-class project to the county that solves those problems in a way that really creates a public-private partnership between the applicant and Park and Planning, as well as the City of College Park. What I would like to do, because I think Mr. Bossi gave you a really good overview, is to provide some images to you to review where I can highlight a few of the features of the project, and also to address Commissioner Durner's questions as well. I have hard copies of them as well, which I'm going to pass out for you. Whichever is easiest for you to look at is fine.
What I need to know is, are you taking excerpts from what's
We
already
had
in the record, or are these new
We
that I
had
need to
sent
have
these
in?
images to Mr. Bossi. He incorporated some of them
Okay, but
into
not all
the
of them?
presentation, but not all of them.
Okay.
And so if I would just request that this be marked as applicant's exhibit number 1, and then and some of them are duplicative.
Okay, so we're gonna have, this exhibit featuring the various renderings marked and accepted into the record as applicant's exhibit number 1. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Statler.
So with the first image, as Mr. Bossi indicated, is the landmark feature element of the building at the southeast corner. The sector plan does identify this as the location of a landmark feature, and in working with both your staff and the City of College Park, we've been able to create something that I think that truly will stand out as a landmark with the lantern feature on the top of the corner. I would like to point out, if you look at the upper left corner of the building, as you get further back closer to Paint Branch, you'll see an indentation of the building. That's the rooftop amenity that staff mentioned that will look out over the university and look out over Paint Branch. So that gives you a sense of how we're integrating the architecture with the surrounding area. And then also, as you can see, is where the Pocket Park is, and how the Pocket Park is integrated with the retail area, which is just on the other side of the garage entrance. Now, the other element that we wanted to provide, if you go to the second slide, is that staff indicated previously that this is really the transition between what's called the corridor infill character area and the university, the walkable node area for the university. So this is the point on Route 1 where you're entering the campus environment. And so we wanted to pay homage to that and to incorporate a symbol so that as you're driving down the road, you know you've arrived at the University of Maryland. The name of this project is going to be Tempo. And so we've taken the M in Tempo and integrated it with the architecture so that we create the M, which just coincidentally coincides with the University of Maryland. So this is going to be a prominent feature. The lighting will be something that people will know. It's going to be an iconic building on Route 1 as you come south, which we hope to be preferable to the Burger King and the empty restaurant that currently exist on the site.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and some of these were already shown, I see.
Yes.
I see.
So this third slide is kind of a blow-up of one that Mr. Bossi showed you that highlights the Pocket Park area. And what this shows is how we've integrated the Pocket Park public art. And as I mentioned, I think in our preliminary plan, there's more function even than that's provided here. Because this is a trailhead providing access to the Paint Branch Trail, we anticipate it maybe being a spot where people are going to meet, where people may want to be picked up, who maybe have come from the campus at an event or something. And so not only do we have the entrance to the trail here, but we also are going to provide an Uber pickup spot so that if somebody wants to be to have a car pick them up, they call an Uber. We have dedicated parking inside the garage so the Uber can come in and pick somebody up without having to stop on Route 1. So it really creates an opportunity for a gathering spot, a place to meet. You can always meet at the M there at the trailhead. So this will provide an opportunity for not only interaction of the public, but also the residents of the building. Mr. Durner asked about the transition going back to the trail. So there's going to be a change in material as you, and a dismount area, as you go back to the side of the building. You can't really see it on that image, but the pavement will be marked to show that it's a pedestrian and bicycle trail. So there will be not only a change in material, but also marking to be able to demonstrate that that is the beginning of the trail. And then we're showing a sign that, I don't know if you can read it, but it says Paint Branch Trail on it as well. If you could go to the next image. This is an image of what the rear of the building will be from across Paint Branch on the trail that Park and Planning maintains on the west side of Paint Branch. We will be constructing a trail on the east side that will lead back to the building. But you can see how the building is being integrated into the natural landscape. And so the people that live along there on that side of the building will not only look at Paint Branch and the natural features there, but also be able to, the upper floors will be able to see the University of Maryland. And for those who are familiar with the University of Maryland, this is pretty much where the field hockey field is as you're going back to Comcast Center. So it's a fairly highly used area of campus. There's a lot of sports activities and other events that go on there. So there's a lot for the students to want to have access to, in addition to going to class there. So that's a really a nice image to show how we're integrating the building into the landscape. If you go to the next two slides, just show the building in context to the trail that we're proposing. And I understand the trail is part of the mandatory referral, but I wanted to be able to put the trail into context. So you see the building at the top of that image, and then the trail that will run along the east side of Paint Branch and connect to the existing trail at the University View project, which then leads to the pedestrian bridge that crosses Paint Branch today. So this will provide accessibility not only for pedestrians, people on bikes, people on scooters will all have access to this trail. If you go to the next image, just shows the building close up. Just want to point out on this trail, we had the conversation last couple weeks ago about the options for the trail, one being on Park and Planning property, one being on the adjoining privately owned property. We are in escrow now on the closing of that acquisition, so it's going to happen. And so you see the trail will come around, curve around into the back area that's a promenade, and I have another image later, but the promenade runs behind the building, and that will be on Park and Planning land and have additional amenities that I'll go through in just a minute. And then it leads into the trail that runs along the south side of the property that leads up to the Pocket Park, and is the trail we discussed that will come up to the trailhead. And then this is just a broader image that shows how the trail will go along the other properties. So there's two properties that are south of the subject property and between the subject property and the University View. One of them is owned by the University of Maryland, and they already have a public use trail easement on the west side of their property that we are going to be constructing the trail across. And then we have the property adjacent to that, which is where the existing Taco Bell and Denny's restaurants are. And that's the private trail easement that we are acquiring to allow the trail to extend from the University of Maryland property up to this property. Those are just some landscape images. If you could go to the next slide. This is an image. It was shown in your presentation on a smaller scale, but just the purpose of this is simply to highlight the internal courtyards that we have inside the building, each of which has a different recreational component and kind of serve different purposes. The courtyard on the left, or the southern courtyard, will include a pool, site furniture, and a trellis feature, and sitting areas. The one in the middle will have an outdoor kitchen. There'll be a bocce court, as well as site furniture, and the one on the right will include a fire pit as well as site furniture. So each one of the courtyards has kind of a different function depending upon what the students and that live in the building are looking for. If you go to the next image, this is an image just along of the front streetscape and how we've tried to widen the streetscape. You may recall that the city asked for a public use easement along the front for the site amenities that are outside of the public right-of-way. So this gives you a sense of the wider sidewalks, and there are seating areas designed into the walls that provide opportunities for people to congregate, and then that's also in front of the retail component as well as the leasing area, so that all of the students will have access to that area, and there will be a public use easement that will cover access to the building. And then the final image that we have is of the rear promenade. And I want to show that because it shows how this project begins to integrate with the trail. Now, this promenade area, although it's going to be located on Park and Planning property, will actually be maintained by the property owner. But there are several site amenities that are included there. We have both a scooter and bicycle parking area. We have a proposed public bike repair station. We have a bottle fill station and drinking fountain for pedestrians and bicyclists. We also have site furniture in terms of lounge chairs, a seating wall, as well as an ADA compliant picnic table to create an overlook there as you're overlooking the Paint Branch. And so this will be an area where people can meet, can stop as they're going along the trail, but it'll provide an amenity that will benefit not only the users of the trail, but also the residents of the building. And that's all incorporated into the project. That will be part of the mandatory referral, but I just wanted to give you some idea of the types of amenities that are being incorporated into it. I think that's it, is it not? That's it. So that's a summary of the project. As you can see, there's a lot of different components, and all of which involve some element of public-private participation. There are a number of features designed into the building that will allow this building to not only benefit the residents, but also the public that is in this area. With that said, I just wanted to note that we agree with the staff's recommendations and their findings. We have no requested changes to the conditions. This is 2 weeks in a row that I've said that, and I don't want that to become too common a thing, but I'm
It works for us.
very, very appreciative of the work that your staff did in working with the city, College Park, to incorporate their conditions into the recommendation. The only thing I do want to add into the record, which I'd like to pass out, there was one condition that the city asked be added that is in your backup as condition 1F, I believe it is. And, 1I, excuse me. And it references that we provide a detail for the screen that's going to cover the entrance to the garage along Route 1.
I'm sorry, where
is that
is
again?
one? Oh, is this in the memo?
If you look at the memo with the updated conditions, condition 1I, requests that we provide. We have some areas of the garage that on the first level, and where we will be having them screened. And so, City of College Park asked us to provide a detail of what the screening material would be. We provided that to the city, but I wanted to make sure it was in this record just to make sure that everybody was on the same page as to what we would be proposing, and this will be integrated into our final plans that are submitted for certification.
So we'll have this accepted into the record as applicant's exhibit number 2. Thank you.
And that concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Are there
that you
any other
have.
questions for Mr. Haller at this time? Commissioner Dorner?
So just a quick comment, and this is also towards our staff as well from the park side. One feature in there, in that slide extra right now that's up, that we haven't seen before, and one feature I'm glad that you have in this project, the feature I'm glad you have is the bike repair station, because we're not getting those on every project. And putting those right next to bike racks, especially along the trails, is very helpful. Because I hate it when I blow flat, or if I need like extra air or something, and I just need to go, and I'm at the end of the trail or the beginning,
Right.
and I can't find that. So I think that's very good. The other feature that we don't see almost anywhere in our parkland on the trails is the water fill station. And I'm constantly going through, I'm running or I'm on a bike, and I would love to have a water fill station. I can't find them. So I think that's a really nice addition that we don't usually see. So thanks for that added level of detail. And then if you could also just address my earlier sort of comment/question about the streetscape.
And I
on the-
apologize, I did
on
not
the
address
bikes.
that. So we did have, as the board, I think, is aware, the State Highway Administration is in the early stages of a reconstruction project of Route 1 that will impact this property as well as the rest of Route 1 as you go south of here. And the it will involve the construction of medians in the right-of-way, which will reduce the amount of cross-traffic of people entering sites and trying to turn, for example, on this site left. So it will reduce traffic conflicts. The state highway plan includes a bike lane, not a bike track or even a separate color. We did have a meeting with the Trails Coordinator, Mr. Schaefer, before he left, and City College Park and State Highway Administration about the plans and whatnot. And I think maybe Ms. Shum might be better to respond to your question, because she even indicated to State Highway Administration that they haven't done what they've asked them to do with regard to bicycle amenities and safety in terms of trying to provide a raised bicycle lane or even a different color. So, but I do know that after having the conversation that we had, because this is in the state right-of-way and they control ultimately what they build in there, that this is the plan that is at this point going to be implemented. It certainly will be safer than what's there today, because even today there isn't a dedicated bike lane. But I think one of the things the city was asking for was some sort of a barrier between, and you mentioned the potential lighting between the travel lanes and the bike lane, so it was absolutely clear where the bicycles are going to be. I think it will be better, but it doesn't quite rise to the level of what you indicated would be preferable. But that's certainly something that may be worth the board communicating to State Highway Administration. I know that it would be helpful in that, because I know the city has also communicated that same concern to State Highway.
Yes. So I don't know if our staff wants to provide any additional detail, but that absolutely needs to happen. We need to press that on SHA. I'll reach out to them if you have contacts, to email them if need be. If you need us to say stuff, that absolutely needs to happen. I don't want to see fatalities in this area that we've had in the past. We're having fatality problems in our sister county that are getting a lot of press. I don't want that coming into our county. And that would add an additional layer of really nice detail to this great project if we have this kind of safety as a top priority. And I think if it requires us to put more pressure on SHA to do that, I think we should. As we try and make bike as another mode of transit in this area, it needs to be safe, otherwise people aren't going to use it, and those who do use it may get hurt. And there's simple fixes of just coloration that can be very easy. There are other things like raising it just slightly that would be good. I realize that maybe the barriers may not be a great thing, but there are plenty of examples now, even in DC, where they've shut down parts of the street and they've reclaimed it over in sort of like the northwest section as you get over by some of the metro accessible transit districts, that they've got just total lanes that are redone, and they're green, they have barriers, and they work perfectly fine, and they're extremely safe. And you have bike shares like we're going to have in this area, using them as well as regular bikes. So I think we need to definitely use this as an opportunity to engage in those conversations and allow and sort of opine that this is not acceptable. It's great to see the bike lanes in there, but it's not the minimum level of acceptability that we need in this area to make it really great. So, yeah.
Commissioner, Acting Deputy Derek Berlage, we have in other cases in the past, the planning board has sent letters to State Highway, and if it is the board's will, this would certainly be an appropriate case to do that. And we could make that letter, as detailed as you would like, and seek the opportunity to have our staff sit down with State Highway staff to discuss those issues. Unfortunately, because it is state right-of-way, a condition is not, to this application is not a viable solution, but we'd be delighted if the board wishes to have a letter prepared and to follow up on that letter as best we can. And I think, as Mr. Haller indicated, the city would be delighted to be part of that campaign as well.
That's what, we have Ms.
Make that
Shum
happen.
here, so I was going to ask her too, but typically that is what we do, as write a letter, so that was going to be my next comment, so thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haller. Ms. Shum?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Terry Shum, representing the City of College Park. So you have the city's council's letter before you, and as you can see, the the City Council unanimously voted to recommend approval of this application with a number of conditions. So I appreciate the fact that both the applicant and your staff have worked with the city to make our proposed conditions part of your staff's recommendation. So really appreciate that, and that's why we're in supportive of this application. I do have several comments to make regarding certain elements of this project, and that relate to some of the conditions we were requesting and why we were requesting them. So the first has to do with retail. So you've heard that this is a rather...
Let me stop you for a second, but are these the ones, they're incorporated?
They're now incorporated in your staff's, I guess, supplemental
Right,
recommendation that's before you.
Okay.
Yes. So the first had to do with the amount of retail provided in this project.
We just want to clarify, these are not incremental conditions, you're just explaining why
I'm
the
just commenting.
condition.
These
Got it.
are side comments that relate to the conditions that have now been incorporated. But, so I want
But
to
you feel
comment on the
that you need to
streetscape,
comment.
I'll get to that. But the first thing is the retail, because I think it's important to understand, the sector plan and its intention with these mixed-use projects. So this project is very dense. It is almost clocking in at 150 dwelling units an acre. So that's a very large project. And that is only permitted under the sector plan because there is another use being provided. And that other use in this case is retail. So we have gotten, the applicant and your staff to agree to bump it up a little bit to 1,200 square feet. So that's good. And the other thing that the city asked and is now in your recommendation is that it be ensured that this is dedicated retail, not just retail in the corner of an amenity space, which is really just the lobby and for the users of the building. This is in a walkable node. In the sector plan, the whole reason for a walkable node is to provide a pedestrian-oriented space. You make a pedestrian space interesting by providing shopfront along the street, and a walkable node has a mandatory shopfront in this instance. So I just want to say for this project and for future projects that are reviewed under the same standards, it's really important to understand that the mixed-use piece is an important piece, not, shouldn't be considered auxiliary or secondary in any way. It truly is important to the character of the area that this building will reside in. So I just wanted to mention that. About the streetscape, oh my. So I have been working with State Highway Administration for at least 15 years on the planning of Route 1, because that's how long it's taken to get a plan approved and funded at State Highway. What has happened recently is that the state has awarded a construction contract. So this project is moving. It's on its way. And even, during the last several months before this project went out to bid, the city was trying to get enhancements to the sidewalk and to the bike accommodations, particularly for bikes. So this plan started out having bike accommodations be just a wide outside lane, not even demarcated for bicycles. Now what you see in the plan is a 5-foot bike lane, which will be signed with a 1-foot painted buffer. So it won't be it won't be raised, it won't be a flex post, but it will be a 1-foot painted buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane. That's something, but it's, I agree with you, probably not enough. We tried to have a green lane be part of the project plans, and it's not in there now. But honestly, I think with your support and letter writing to ask for at a
Do a joint letter.
at a minimum, well, the city has already done these letters,
Okay.
so I
Well,
think we've exhausted
Well, we can do our letter with yours attached as a reminder.
But yeah, we could certainly sign on to that. But to maybe emphasize that, because I think at this, late stage in the project, that is still something that is doable. Because it wouldn't change the ultimate street section, they wouldn't have to redesign the curb or anything else that's part of the project that's already been determined. So, yeah, the city would definitely support that. And of course, the State Highway project starts at College Avenue and moves north. South of College Avenue, where there's no proposed SHA improvements, we're working closely with your staff as projects come in to have a cycle track developed as part of the streetscape. That is out of the road, and that is next to the sidewalk, but separated in some fashion. So, and downtown College Park, of course, is very, very busy with bicycles and pedestrians. So we think that's good, and State Highway has been supportive of that. Let's see, finally, I just wanted to mention about the public art feature. So this is a condition that isn't part of your staff's recommendation, but I just wanted to say that the applicant has agreed to work with the city to submit details of the public art feature to us in order to receive a matching grant that the city offers to incentivize public art and projects like these. So we appreciate that. So that's all the comments I have for you today. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions of Ms. Shum? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Haller, do you have anything else to add? There was no one else on the sign-up sheet. Was there anyone else who wished to speak whose name I did not call? Okay, Mr. Haller.
Thank you again, Thomas Haller, on behalf of the applicant. The only thing I wanted to comment on, and we appreciate the city's comments about the size of the retail, and we have agreed to increase it as recommended in the conditions. If we go back to the floor plan again, I just wanted to point out, one of the issues that we have in this particular case is we have a topography issue, because Route 1 actually slopes up as you go from the southern property line to the northern property line. And what you can't really tell from that image that you see is that you have the entrance to the lobby area or the residential amenity area, but that goes underground very quickly. And so we have the retail there before it goes underground. But then the other thing is, by incorporating the pocket park and the trailhead and the wider sidewalk, we create a lot of walkable opportunities and opportunities for congregation. And so our goal was to, between the retail space, the amenity entrance, the pocket park, and the trailhead, to really create an area that will attract a lot of pedestrian activity. And given the fact that we have the Lidl across the street now, which a lot of our residents will walk to, there are a lot of opportunities for pedestrian activity to be encouraged in this area. So we think we've achieved the goal of the sector plan by combining all of those features at this corner of the building, but we do have a topography challenge in terms of carrying it any further to the north, and that was the issue that we were facing.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haller.
Just a quick question for Mr. Heller. Just clarification, on the Uber parking that you guys have in the garage, are you gonna have like a sticker or a sign of some sort that would indicate for drivers to know that they can park?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
great. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great project.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no one else to speak, and if the board has no other questions, and Mr. Bossi, you have nothing else to add, right? Okay, so is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the findings of staff in addition to the revised and enhanced findings in staff memo dated January 29, and approve the alternative development district standards as outlined in staff's report A1 through 6, and also was further modified in staff's memo dated January 29, and approve DSP-19025 and TCP 2-038-2019, along with the associated conditions outlined in staff's report, in addition to the conditions as modified and augmented in staff memo dated January 29.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just under discussion, I want to request that staff do follow up on the letter, absolutely, and work with the city of College Park, incorporate their letter as an additional attachment, make sure that our recommendations are consistent with what they've had. Go a little bit beyond the green lane, please, and suggest other ideas that would be ideal in these areas. And say at a minimum, we should have the green lane, but here are other ideas that would make increased safety.
It will be done.
Thank you. Anything else under discussion? Really good plan, beautiful plan. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, here's what we're doing next. We're going to finish item 5, the CDP. We're going to take 2 minutes, then we're going to come back and do a legislative item with our council and the Department of Parks and Recreation, and then do item 8. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're back to item 5. We had a question with regard to the legality of moving forward with a portion of the CDP, and I don't know who wants to address this at this juncture. Your mic's not on either.
Yeah. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. If I may, I will start it here because we had an extensive discussion among our legal counsel, People's Zoning Council, the applicant. Actually, the only change, I'm sorry, I just provide additional backup. Actually, it's turned out we don't need it. The only thing we need to change is on page number 9 of the condition 25. We changed that 2,500 to 2,113. That's the only change we need to make on this condition. And then staff will change the finding accordingly in the resolution.
What are you changing the finding to?
Because the total number of
No, you need to state a little bit about the findings, so
Right,
it's on the record.
Right.
So
We're
state,
going to limit this changes to the property, under this application.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to our legal counsel.
Madam Chair, David Warner, Principal Counsel. I believe your question was one, if I wasn't mistaken, regarding the legality of making this amendment to applicable just to the property under the control of the applicant, which is certainly permissible if that's what you so decide. And then 2, to clarify what Mr. Zhang mentioned, is that the 2,113th building permit, the change in his number 25 there would apply only to those properties under the control of the applicant, and that is how it's written.
Okay. Mr. Peoples Zoning Council, Mr. Brown, do you have some comment?
Well, I mean, actually, the way the revised condition is written, it would apply to all property owners, but, I mean, I'm satisfied, Mr. Antonetti, Mr. Zhang, that the revision reflects the issue that I've raised. It may not cure it completely, but I think it's the best we can do, given we're dealing with another property owner that really does not exist. So, I mean, I'm mollified.
Okay. All right. Mr. Antonetti, do you have anything else to add? No. Okay, was there anyone else to speak on this matter? Okay. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and would ask staff to revise or enhance the finding which speaks to sections controlled and owned only by the applicant, and then approve CDP-0501-02 with the following revised condition 25. And I'll read it into the record, and I believe you have the language. Prior to the issuance of the 2,113th building permit and sections 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, owned by the applicant SHF Project Owner LLC and the RM zone, a minimum of 70,000 square feet of the proposed commercial gross floor area in the LAC zone shall be constructed.
If I may, actually, I'm sorry, that's not the final. I think the final concurrence basically is on page 9. We keep the original condition, but only change the number of building permit to.
I heard what you said, Mr. Zank, but I guess it's confusing to me because even if we change the number, we're still referencing the RM or LAC zone land. So it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it specific that it's just the land owned by this applicant. And I thought that was the heart of the issue. You follow me?
Yes, Ms. Washington, you're absolutely correct. We can't cure it, unfortunately. And so we cannot cure the problem that I raised. It's going to impact the other property owner. So what all of the attorneys essentially agreed to was what you just read. We thought we could make that work, but we couldn't. So then we've now changed that to, as it was on the staff report, the only thing we're changing is the number from 2,500 to 2,113.
Okay, so I will revise my motion to include revised condition 25 to read as follows. Prior to issuance of the I don't want to say the year, 2,113th building permit, and all else is as outlined in staff's report.
Second, I think. We're back to the original recommendation.
Yeah, just changing the number.
Okay, so I do second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and we will clearly review the resolution before it comes back to us. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, we also have we're going to take a legislative item, then we're going to take a 5-minute health break and come back and hear item 8. So under, so the legislative item, Ms. Ramos or Mr. Gardner, who's starting? Ms. Ramos?
Good morning. Happy Thursday, Madam Chair and board members.
Good morning.
And I am here today to take position on Bill 10820, the MNCBPC Summer Math Reading and Science Pilot Program. And I guess I forgot to say, my name is Wanda Ramos. I'm Acting Deputy Director for the Department of Parks and Recreation. And I'm going to go ahead and read the memo. I do have copies for you here, and then we can add additional comments.
Thank you.
The Department of Parks and Recreation has reviewed Bill PGMC 10820 MNCBPC Summer Math Reading and Science Pilot Program introduced in the Prince George's House delegation by Delegate Valentino Smith. After a thorough review, the department does not support the bill. Instead, the department recommends that a pilot program be conducted by the Prince George's school system to determine the feasibility of establishing such a program of the scope and complexity recommended in the bill. Our review of the legislation raised several questions and concerns, and they are primarily questions, unanswered questions. Personnel. Whose personnel will staff the program, the Prince George's Board of Educations or the commissions? Qualifications. Who will establish qualifications for personnel working in the program? Certifications. Will instructors in the program have to be certified by Maryland state authorities? Curriculum. who will develop the curriculum for the program?
Ms. Ramos, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because you've done a wonderful memo for us. And so these questions are verbatim in your memo with some cost questions and what have you. And I would note that we actually talked with the superintendent of schools to Dr. Monica Golson, who is also not in favor of this bill. It's taking us outside of our purview, and with so many unanswered questions in a time where we are embarking on so many other new humongous initiatives. So I think I, for one, would support your recommendation in here, so long as our concerns are respectfully transmitted to when you present to the General Assembly and to Delegate Valentino Smith.
And having said that, having listened to you say that, I certainly do agree and move that we accept the recommendations. Do we need to do that with staff? Yeah.
And I second.
That was your motion?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a motion and a second to accept your recommendation. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. It's aye.
And it is a great memo, by the way.
Great, really.
Thank you.
Well documented.
We hope
Three
you
of
feel
us
better.
work, it's not all mine, it's,
Yes,
we all
it's
work
indeed.
together.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess and come back and hear item 8. Okay, the Prince George's County Planning Board is back in session. We have before us item 8, which was a continuation of a preliminary plan of subdivision from last week. It is 4-18016, 4-18016 Crane Commons. Mr. Diaz-Campbell, would you like to, can you give us a quick overview where we left off? Okay.
Certainly. So, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, I am Eddie Diaz-Campbell, Senior Planner with the Subdivision Zoning Section. Item number 8 on the agenda is the preliminary plan of subdivision for Crane Commons, 4-18016. Subject property proposes 75 lots and 12 parcels for a mixed-use development to include 75 townhouse units and 9,965 square feet of commercial development. This project has been continued from its previous planning board hearing date of January 23, 2020, which is last week. As a matter of housekeeping, staff has passed out this morning additional backup consisting of staff's revised recommendation. As you will recall, last week staff was recommending disapproval of the application. Our revised recommendation is approval with conditions, provided that the application feature no more than 50 townhouse units.
I'm sorry, say that again? Your voice went down.
We're recommending approval with conditions if the application features no more than 50 townhouse units.
Okay, 5-0.
5-0, yes.
Got it, okay.
Okay. So to recap this project, staff previously recommended denial because the application did not conform to the Plan 2035 Prince George's General Plan. The major issues are recapped on this slide, including the density standards not being prescribed by the zoning ordinance for the site, surrounding areas developed and zoned for large lot single-family detached development. The general plan prescribes that the property is appropriate for context-sensitive development, and staff had recommended that if the project was to be approved, there should be a significant reduction in the number of lots on site. With 75 units, the project would feature a density of 7.7 units per acre, which is more than twice that recommended for residential low-density areas, according to the general plan. Staff had previously created this Exhibit A, which shows 34 lots. This is the maximum number which could be achieved under residential low density, or 3.5 units per acre. This week, the applicant provided, using the continuance, this revised plan, which they worked with staff to revise. This exhibit has a layout featuring 66 units, units, or 6.7 dwelling units per acre. Staff does not recommend approval of this particular layout, but staff believes it can be modified to mitigate the general plan conformance issues created by its density if the number of lots is further reduced. This slide shows staff's Exhibit B, which reduces the number of lots to 50, or 5.1 units per acre. 5.1 units per acre is on the low end of what the general plan considers to be residential medium-density development. Staff believes that this density is acceptable if additional buffering is created along Croom Road in place of 16 lots. This buffer would be approximately 160 feet deep northwest of the entrance drive and approximately 240 feet deep southwest of the entrance drive. The buffer will ensure that the scenic and historic character of Croom Road will be preserved. It will also provide distance between the townhouse development and the large residential lots in the RA zone across Croom Road. Adequate buffering and distance are already provided between the townhouses and uses to the south and west. With this configuration, staff believes the project would be context-sensitive development as recommended by the general plan. This slide shows the applicant's version and staff's version of the exhibit side by side. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of preliminary plan of subdivision 4-18016 with no more than 50 townhouse lots, subject to the conditions of approval provided in the additional backup. Staff also recommends approval of Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-003-2018, a variance to section 25-122B1G for specimen trees, and a variation from section 24-121A3 for arterial road access. This concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions of Mr. Diaz-Campbell? Okay, Mr. Lynch.
Good morning. For the record, Dan Lynch with the law firm McNamee Hosey here on behalf of the applicant PMG. I'd like to thank staff, Mr. Diaz-Campbell. We've made some substantial progress over the past week on where we are with regard to this project. We still are not in a complete agreement, and if I may, I'd ask that the staff pull up our exhibit.
I was told that this file will take some time to load. Here we go.
Okay, there. So, all right. Where we are right now is that the applicant is at 65 lots and staff is at 50. And again, we believe that the 65 lots, based upon our analysis, and I think even based upon some of the testimony you've heard of staff, still falls within the general plan's recommendation for the density in the established communities, which actually is set forth in the general plan, is between 3.5 and 8 units to the acre. At 65 lots, we're at 6.6 units to the acre, which is still below the maximum allowed in the established communities. So that's one of the reasons why we're asking for 65 lots. In addition, with regard to Mr. Campbell's concern and staff's concern that this is not context sensitive, our proposal, when we relocate those lots, proposes a 60-foot buffer along Croom Road, which is 25 feet. That
Okay,
is normally
can you follow along with the cursor? Thank you.
So in that area there, normal compliance in the landscape manual along Historic Road is 35 feet, and we're proposing 60 feet along that. So it's 25 feet that is normally required. Our proposal just shows some landscaping there, but we're actually proposing to fully landscape that area so that it would be a significant buffer along Croom Road. And again, we're over and above what's normally required in the landscape manual for that area. And again, we're still within, at 65 units, we're still within the established community recommendation at 6.5 units to the acre. And as I indicated, the established community is 3.5 to 8 units to the acre. Finally, going to Mr. Diaz-Campbell's comment with regard to context-sensitive development, By doing this, we're also in a position, we're going to be dedicating over 5 acres for Stream Valley Park, which we think is a significant amount of dedication along that entire property line. So not only are we exceeding what's normally required in terms of a buffer along the historic historic road, we've reduced our density already by 10 lots, and we're going to proposing about 5 acres of dedication to the Stream Valley Park. So, again, we believe that this board can make the finding that this is in conformance with Plan 2035, since we're below the established community recommendation. We believe that this board can make a recommendation that we're also conform to content-sensitive development, since we're exceeding the landscape manual requirement for a buffer along Croom Road. And then again, with regard to this development, because as designed, we're allowed to dedicate over 5 acres to a Stream Valley Park. If the board is inclined to go along with our request, we need condition number 1 revised to state 65 units. And then we'd also need condition 3 revised to increase the trip cap from 83 a.m. to 101 a.m. and 151 p.m. to 171 p.m. trips. And that would accommodate the development that we're proposing as opposed to the 50 lots.
Can you say that again, please?
Okay. Under condition 3?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
What was the first condition?
The first condition that we're requesting would be condition 1B.
1B?
Yes. And
Okay.
1B would need to reflect 65 units.
1A.
I'm sorry, 1A. Would need to reflect 65 units in accordance with applicant's exhibit.
Got it.
Okay? And then 3 would state, development within the subject property shall be limited to uses which generate no more than 101 a.m. and 171 p.m. net peak hour trips.
Madam Chair.
101 and 171.
Madam Chair, if I may interject, the trip cap that he just cited with the 101 AM trips, that was the original trip caps calculated for 75 units. If you were to approve a development of 65 units, staff would need to revise the trip cap accordingly, and that's something that could be done at the prior to adoption of the resolution.
Okay.
Okay. So you said 101 a.m. and what was this?
171 p.m. And again, excuse me?
71?
171. And the reason, and again, I understand Mr. Diaz-Campbell's comment, but if we leave it where it is, we're not going to generate any more residential lots, but it may give some additional flexibility with regard to the commercial end of this. Right now, we do have a Starbucks under contract for the property. We also have one of the mini clinics under contract for the property, but if we wanted to deviate from those 2 users, which I doubt we're going to do, that allows us for a little more flexibility. But we're more than happy to revise that count as suggested by Mr. Diaz-Campbell.
Okay, let me do this. First of all, I want to get the staff exhibit into the record as staff exhibit number 1. Okay, and because it's dated today. Now, these other additional backups, this more citizens in opposition, they were more timely, so they're already included in the record, right? They were additional backup.
Yes,
that
they're
was
in the record.
Excuse me?
The citizen opposition letters are in the record, yes?
Yes, and the new ones we've received in the intervening week, I think. Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right, and with that, those are the only 2 revisions to the conditions that we're requesting. Would be with regard to condition 1A, to increase it to 65, and then the change to the trip cap contained in condition 3.
Okay.
And again, as I indicated, we believe that under the general plan, the density for the established community being 3.5 to 8 units to the acre, our proposal for 6.5, you can find conforms to that recommended density. And we believe that staff's concerns and the master plan's concerns with regard to context-sensitive development, providing a buffer along Croom Road that is 25 feet wider than normal compliance, addresses that. The dedication of the Stream Valley Park, which is about 5 acres, also addresses that. So I think that we really do provide a development that is sensitive to the surrounding areas. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions this board has. Thank
Okay,
you.
we may have some questions, but I'm going to start with a question because I need some parameters and some legal guidance. Okay, so one of the things that I think we were at a crossroads for a number of reasons. One of which was, despite the two bills that were passed, our council said last week, despite the two bills that were passed by the county council, CB 122 and CB 75 2018, CB 122 2017 and CB 75 2018. Our legal staff and our planning staff felt that the council did not provide us with standards, development standards, and even though there was a second attempt, it was, from their perspective, it wasn't enough in terms of the development standards. Also, the staff report has on page 3 that, so then we look to the general plan, if I'm not mistaken. So when we look to the general plan, the original proposal from our staff's perspective was that it did not conform with the 2035 general plan, and nor did it comply with the master plan. So now we have a recommendation, staff has a recommendation that the 50 lots complies with the general plan. Okay?
Is that right?
Yes.
That's correct.
You're shaking your head. Okay, that's correct, and legal counsel is indicating yes as well. The applicant is saying that 65 lots complies with the general plan. Okay, now my question is compliance with the general plan sufficient for us to act in absence of the development standards, which we were told that we did not have from the council? Okay, so somebody needs to get in.
So, Madam Chair, David Warner, Principal Counsel. Unfortunately, that the ordinance, as Deputy Counsel Borden mentioned last week, did not set the standards necessary to determine what the density could be for that property. Staff has done what it can do to find some type of density that would be appropriate for that property. Can the board approve this project based on staff's recommendation? If it finds, based on all the testimony and everything that's been presented before it, it can. It still, though, leaves the question outstanding of why the district council was not more specific, and it certainly would be preferable in the future that they were so.
Okay, so that is helpful to me, but not as helpful in the sense that it still leaves the question open as to why the district council wasn't more specific, and that from our standpoint, from your legal standpoint, and from our planning expertise, we would prefer that they be more specific in terms of the development standards. But can we go forward with, so in absence of that, we looked to the general plan. And last week, it was determined by our staff that the original submission did not conform with the general plan, so therefore you had no development or insufficient development standards and an application that, in your professional opinion, did not conform to the general plan, so you had neither. Now, I am told by our technical staff and our legal counsel that we have a plan that still doesn't have all the, we still don't have the development standards, but we do have a plan that conforms to the general plan. Is that, so there, okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Andre Checkley, Planning Director. That is correct. And given, staff is in a precarious position, given the fact that there weren't any, or there weren't sufficient development standards given for this property, we did look to what we have. And what we have is the general plan and the surrounding area, and looking to be sensitive to the surrounding area. This is what we viewed as context sensitive, while still allowing for what the district council has clearly stated they want in this area, townhouses. Mr. Lynch is correct it says that the density will be set at detailed site plan, but we're here at preliminary plan. And we have to make a recommendation, and the board has to make a decision on the preliminary plan. And so staff looked to what we had to use in this case. Not ideal, but we did the best that we could under the circumstances.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Geraldo.
So,
In microphone.
I want to make sure, so just to understand, so that given this current legal situation and there being no development standards, it's staff's is insufficient, that it's staff's opinion that the most that can be put there to be consistent with the general plan is 50 townhouses.
Still 50.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I
Mr.
may,
Warner.
David Warner, Principal Counsel, I just wanted to clarify as well that staff's change in their recommendation was based not just on going from, I think, 35 to 50 lots, but in addition, they made additional recommendations to justify the 50. It wasn't just a change from 35 to 50, but additional.
And that's reflected in the
Additional.
staff's exhibit number 1.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so what I wanted to know what was our legal parameters. I mean, we can, so, we didn't have the full gamut of development standards that were deemed necessary, from your professional, perspective. But we looked, so therefore we looked to the general plan. The general plan, pursuant to the general plan, we feel, or our staff feels, that the 50 lots is in compliance to what we do have as stated by our the planning director, Ms. Sheckley. Okay, so legally, I just want to make sure legally, because I didn't know whether legally we couldn't go forward absent the development standards, or whether we could go forward given that we do have compliance with the general plan. According, so, Mr. Lynch.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as in other cases that have been before you and you have approved, the amendment to the zoning ordinance, not just in this case, but in those other cases, also states that the development standards will be determined at the time of detailed site plan.
Okay.
And so what staff is looking for here is, okay, based upon that, what can be approved, and then you finalize those standards at the time of detailed site plan. So, I mean, that's really where you are, as you've done on other cases, like as I cited to last week, like the Palisades case, where you approved a preliminary plan of subdivision, okay, based upon an amendment to the zoning ordinance that allowed townhouses in the CO zone. There are no standards for development of townhouses in the CO zone, so those would be determined at the time of detailed site plan. And that's the same thing that is occurring here. We're looking at basically coming up with a layout for the subdivision, a density for the subdivision, and then the development standards will be finalized at the time of detailed site plan.
Okay.
So where we are right now with staff is the density recommended for the established communities, and this property is located within an established community, in the, is 3.5 to 8 units to the acre. Based upon that, we're requesting 65 units, which puts us at, 65 units, which puts us at 6.6 units to the acre. Staff is recommending 50. And I think the major
Okay,
difference...
well, excuse me, well, I don't do all that math. What is the 50 acres? Where does the 50 acres fall?
50 acres?
I mean, if you had 50 acres, 50 dwelling units.
That would be 5.1 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, it's right there staring me in the face. I knew that. Okay. Okay.
So I think where we really are different, and it's not just the density where we disagree with staff, it's also the layout. And again, one of the points that staff is trying, with the 50 units, what they're trying to do is establish a larger buffer along Prum Road that allows that. So you'll see, you delete one of the 6 of townhouses, you provide a larger buffer. Our point is that under normal compliance along an historic road, you're required to have a 35-foot buffer, which is large, but that's what's required in the landscape manual. We're proposing a 60-foot buffer, which is 25 feet greater than normal compliance. And by providing that 60-foot buffer, we'll be basically able to incorporate another stick back into the development. So that really comes down to, it's the size of that buffer that we're providing along Croom Road.
May I speak, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I would dispute that characterization of the issues. The main issue is still the density. Like, would a 60-foot buffer or a 140-foot buffer be appropriate? Like, that question is not the more important one. The question is, how many lots are necessary in order to be compliant with what we're recommending, which is the low end of medium density residential. And we're saying that medium residential, this low end of medium density residential would be appropriate if there's a buffer. So 50 units is appropriate if there's a buffer. 65 units would not be appropriate even if there is a buffer.
Okay. So now my question is, last week you indicated that we didn't have to, we could go with the higher number and it could be altered at the detailed site plan.
Well, I mean, technically it could, but then we require you to go back and revise your preliminary plan of subdivision.
Okay.
I mean, really, the district council, whoever makes the decision on the detailed site plan, can establish the development regulations at that time. What I'm trying to do is just give a basis, which I'm assuming will be reflected in the detailed site plan.
Okay. So you were up against the clock in terms of, you're at, if I recall, you were at the tail end of your 140 days. So you had until February 2nd, which is only a couple days. So I think that it appeared that you were in a precarious position given the development standards, and I know hear what our legal counsel is saying in terms of we need more clarity and more specificity from the district council on the development standards, and that's a conversation that we can have offline. Doesn't have to, but right now, from where I stand, we did, in absence, we looked at the general plan. Our staff is indicating that the 50 lots comply with the general plan, along with these conditions that set forth in staff exhibit number 1. And I don't know how far we want to go, but we do have a change in the recommendation pursuant to compliance with the general plan. That's all I have to say on that matter. Anything else you have to?
No, I have nothing further to add. I said we've made ourselves quite clear as to just our position with regard to that.
You did.
Yeah, I mean, we understand, we believe that what we're proposing conforms to the general plan, and we believe it conforms to CB 75, which is the amendment to the zoning ordinance that was approved. So again, we just will leave with the board. Again, that's our position, that's our request with regard to the amendments to conditions. And again, I'm happy to answer any additional questions you
Well,
have.
let's see does the board have questions, Commissioner Dwarner?
Yeah, one more for staff. So on the medium residential density, would something below 6 be okay? Like slightly below 6 dwelling units? If we were able to have like the buffer at this phase, and obviously it may not be that much when we get to the DSP, but would something below like 6 be adequate? Or how do you draw the line?
This is really where we are drawing the line at 5.1 dwelling units per acre. I mean, the board can certainly consider a density between 5.1 dwelling units per acre and 6 units per acre. And if you provide us a SIC density, we could calculate the number of lots based on that. But that wouldn't be staff's recommendation.
But following up, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm asking because if we were to add 8 units into that island, which actually were there before, and we were to have a much bigger and fuller buffer like you have, it would get us to 5.9, so it'd be slightly below 6. And you're removing a couple of the sticks that they have up closer to the road, but we would be gaining a much fuller density or a much fuller buffer within there. So it'd be almost halfway between what you and the applicant are asking for. Obviously at DSP, if it doesn't look like it's in conformance, we don't have to go that high. We could drop back down to 5.1 and get back to the 50 units if it doesn't seem like it's going to work very well.
But in order to do that, I need to understand, I think that was your question, would that still be in compliance with?
Because then it's not up on the street, it's sort of hidden, tucked back there, but then you get a lot more foliage and kind of buffering in there if the applicant would be willing to do that.
Commissioner
But it's the
Dorner,
density, huh?
if I could, staff obviously, given the situation, has worked very hard
Yeah.
to find a reasonable compromise. But in reality, and the compromise is in the vicinity of residential medium. That actually is not the recommendation of Plan 2035 for this land. The recommendation is residential low. The 5.1 dwelling units per acre represents, again, staff's effort in the absence of a density requirement to find something that's fair and reasonable, context sensitive to the community, well-designed, respectful of Croom Road status as a historic and scenic road. And so, to the extent the density goes above 5.1, in our view, it's going farther away from Plan 2035, not getting closer.
So
really, that's the most I can say under the circumstances.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just having trouble with the numbers, not necessarily on this part actually, but on the net lot area when you actually calculate the amount of acreage that you can use to do the dwelling units per acre. It's like 15 and change for the whole parcel, and then there's it gets down to 9.8 is what we're using because we say there's too much floodplain within there. But then there's parkland dedication, and that's like 6.28 or something, which actually exceeds well beyond the 15. So I don't know what the real number is when I'm reading the staff report and looking at this, and it seems like there's a little bit of gray area. So I'm trying to figure out like what is the denominator that I should basically be using in there, because it's not clear to me if it is 9.8 or if it should be slightly bigger with the dedication of the parkland and the other stuff.
Well, staff may want to respond, but I believe we are measuring density the way the board typically has measured density in other cases, but I'll let Ms. Campbell elaborate if he wishes.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance requires that we calculate density based on net lot area, not on gross lot area.
Right.
Well, I want to jump in there too, because, so what I heard Mr. Berlage say is that it's still not completely in conformance with the general plan, even at the 50 lots, but it's closer, and it's an effort to compromise. And I want to elaborate on that effort to compromise, because it's not an effort to compromise willy-nilly.
Right.
It's an effort to compromise, balancing the general plan in the absence of sufficient development standards, yet balancing, looking on page 6, CB 122, 2017, and CB 75, 2018. That 2017 was to allow townhouses by right. So now, and we do have to remember about Croom Road. Croom Road is that historic road. It's a narrow, winding road. I just wanted to emphasize that staff's effort, it was said that staff's effort to compromise, and I just want to make sure that we're understanding that it seems to me that it was a real effort to compromise, balancing that CB 122, 2017, and the general plan, and to allow this to go forward, and taking into account Croom Road and the conditions that have been suggested or put forth by staff to address some of those other concerns.
Madam Chair, I would concur with your comments, because especially when we talk about Plan 2035, because I was on the board at that time and I know all the efforts that were done to protect that rim. And I would have never had thought, and we certainly would have never endorsed townhouses in that area. But be that as it may, I agree with you. I think that staff has done an admirable job trying to make a compromise where I don't think personally that townhouses should be in the first place. But the council approved it, so we have to deal with standards that are consistent with our plan, general plan, and Plan 2035.
So just to clarify, so I'm fine with actually, I'm glad that you've worked through and you're willing to kind of go up and think about this. I just wanted to know for the record, so we're straight in our numbers, because if this ever goes to court or we ever have issues, we need to make it very clear. So on number 16 in the handout that you gave us today for the recommendations, me in an oversight in terms of I'm not adding up things correctly, but it says 6.27 acres of parkland.
Yes, that's the acreage of parcel H as shown on the preliminary plan, which is,
Is that in here? Because if I add 6.27 to 9.8, I get over 15.36, I think it was what the total acreage is of the parcel. I just want to make sure we're adding correctly and we have the right numbers in the staff reports and in our calculations. And it might be that we need to adjust to 6.27, and maybe it's something we do after the case and the resolution, but I want to make sure we get the numbers right.
The total acreage is 15.36.
Yeah, but if you subtract out 9.8, you don't get 6.27.
Sherry Connor, for the record, with the subdivision and zoning section. The parcel to be dedicated for mandatory parkland covers the entire floodplain area in addition to some other areas directly abutting the floodplain. So that's where the fluctuation in the
I guess
acreage.
it's just non-floodplain area that's included in that. Okay, and then, okay, that makes sense then. So just for clarity then, that area could get counted because it's not in the floodplain, so it would actually count for the net lot area.
And it does.
Okay, okay, that's where I was hanging up. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, and everybody was done, right? Okay. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we, well, based on the discussion, both, I think, last week as well as this week, and certainly the comments that you made, Madam Chair, with regards to the situation we find ourselves in, I would like to move that we approve preliminary plan 4-18016, TCP 1-003-2018, variance to section 25-122B1G, and variation from section 24-121A3, along with the conditions as outlined in staff exhibit number 1.
Second. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I think it's been had. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, okay. Mr. Hunt, is there any additional business to come before planning board today?
Madam Chair, that's all for today.
Planning board is adjourned.